then a lot of salt, iodized salt.
Okay, and B,
Because we are looking for whole plant-based foods for a healthy diet, we are avoiding processed foods. These meat substitutes are highly processed and use a lot of ingredients that we would not
want to run into. The lesson said on October 22nd, 2019, an alarming paper was published in the Journal of American Medical Association entitled Can Plant-Based Meat Alternatives Be Part of a Sustainable Diet? The paper addressed the health and
two specific meat alternatives, the Impossible Burger and Beyond Meat. Although meat substitutes may be better alternatives to meat, especially red meat, they generally are ultra processed, scientifically engineered, and industrially produced, landing them squarely in the red box foods category. Now, the red box is the box that we are avoiding. Thank you.
it didn't sound any different. Calorie-dense meat substitutes are highly palatable. They keep people coming back for more, but they are not a whole food. All the heavy processing leads to losses of nutrients and phytochemicals that naturally are present in whole plant-based foods. Why did the industry start making plant-based meat substitutes? What was the purpose of them? Oh, it is. That was one of the stories we were told, that we were transitioning into a plant-based diet. So if you move from meat, instead of going directly from meat to plant-based, you had a step in between. What happened though?
We got stuck. I thought it was the main state.
Yes. Use the mics, you guys, so they can hear you well.
About the process?
Use the mic. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
And talk right into it.
Hello. So I was just wanting to make a point that with highly processed foods is that they're also high sodium. If you look at the package, you'll sometimes see 35% sodium. So
Yes.
that would be another reason if you have high blood pressure, congestive heart failure, different things that people have, conditions that they have, you wouldn't want to eat.
Right.
An
And
Impossible Burger.
my suggestion with those types of foods, like everything else you eat, read the ingredient list. Understand what's in the processed meat. And look at the fat and the sodium just like you would any other food that you buy from the store. Because you'll find in most cases you're going to have to leave most of the foods in the store on the shelf.
Just because it says healthy does not mean it's healthy.
Right. High fat, high sodium, processed foods, genetically modified food, and scientifically processed. So when it says that we are what we eat, if we're not eating food, my friend Madeline calls them food-like substances. And if we're eating food-like substances, that will not sustain us in good health. So what's potentially harmful about the Impossible Burgers in our lesson? It says meatless burgers are often prepared the same way as regular burgers and consumed in fast food settings. The Impossible Burger contains excessive amounts of heme, an iron-containing molecule from soy plants, added to enhance the product's meaty flavor and appearance. Higher intake of heme iron has been associated with increased body iron stores and elevated risk of developing type 2 diabetes. Unfortunately, Americans consume 70% of their calories from processed and ultra-processed foods, with 58% coming from the ultra-processed foods specifically. So that's the problem with those meat substitutes. Now, how can we determine which plant-based foods are and aren't healthy? What would you think would be a way to determine? I hope that's not true, because whole plant-based foods taste very good. I went through a stage where I was eating, I forget what they called it back then. It was one of the food fads where you ate food for the food itself. It was not seasoned with anything. And there were restaurants all over Berkeley that had, I wish I could think of the name right now, but it'll come later. Huh? No, but yeah, but not, that wasn't what it was. But it was a way of eating, and what they taught you was to eat the food for the taste of the food. If you eat an apple, you eat a plain apple. You eat a potato, you eat the potato for the taste of the potato. If you eat a green bean, you don't season the food, you eat the food. And I got to the point where, yeah, after a while the food starts to taste really good because you're eating for the taste of the food. We smother our foods in gravies and sugars and salts and seasonings and things, and you don't know what the taste of the food is. And surprisingly, a potato and an apple taste surprisingly alike in their raw form. So when you start eating food like that, you get to a point where you really begin to love the food. And as you transition to a plant-based diet, learning to eat the food naturally won't taste good at first, because your taste buds are used to having more salt, more sugar, and other things in your food. And it's a transition phase till your taste buds have changed. Now, once your taste buds change, you sit down to eat regular food, it's going to taste very sweet, it's going to taste very salty, and your taste buds have just gone away from that type of eating. And it says not all plant-based foods are equal. Just because something is plant-based doesn't mean it's healthy plant-based. The Harvard School of Public Health has done extensive research into what constitutes a healthy plant-based diet, as well as on the benefits of such a diet. Healthy plant-based foods include whole grains, fruits, vegetables, nuts, legumes, seeds, and vegetable oil. Unhealthy plant-based foods include juices. What's wrong with juice?
Sugar.
Too much sugar in it and too concentrated. Sweetened beverages, refined grains. What's a refined grain?
Yeah.
Enriched or modified, or separating the parts of the food from itself. Now it says mashed potatoes. What's wrong with mashed potatoes? Uh-oh.
There's nothing wrong with a mashed potato. It's what you put in it.
Okay. By the time you make a mashed potato palatable, you've put in probably too much fat, cream, and all the things that you load in it to eat it. Okay? French fries. What's wrong with French fries?
Grease.
The grease, the fat. And chips? Salt, grease, and highly processed. What about sweets and desserts?
Sugar.
Too much sugar, too concentrated in sugar. And that's why we move more to fruit for your dessert. And when your taste buds have changed, fruit is going to taste as sweet to you as cake or pie or any of the rest of it. So it's all a matter of how we think about it. Lumping all plant-based food together without dividing them into healthy versus unhealthy blunts any potential improvement in your cardiovascular health. The distinction is an important one. Healthy plant-based eating decreases the risk of heart disease by 25%, whereas unhealthy plant-based eating increases the risk of coronary heart disease by 32%. So isn't it something that you could be eating a plant-based diet and still causing damage to your health? And I think a lot of us misunderstand when people put signs on food that says it's healthy or it's plant-based, that is good for us. And you'll see some of those things in the store, and you go through the store and read the package. I've had one plant-based meat that had ingredients that went down a page. If it's got that many ingredients in it and you won't recognize most of them, then it's not healthy. Yes, ma'am.
Is any of the food that we ate today considered plant-based?
I wasn't downstairs. I'm not sure what we ate today. Was there anything?
Yeah, I know what they're talking about, but I was wondering if the plant-based food that we ate downstairs today, what category is that considered to be healthy, plant-based, or not?
We were discussing that. We didn't know for sure.
Only, the salads, the green beans, the broccoli, all that was.
Potentially healthy.
The salad was definitely healthy.
Because I've traveled on the road. My sister and I did road trips across the South, and we would stop at places to try to get something to eat. We go to the smorgasbord. The smorgasbord has every kind of food you can imagine. We walk through the whole restaurant. We're looking for something we can eat. We can usually eat the salad. We get to the green beans or the greens. Oh yeah, it doesn't have meat in it, but we cooked it in lard, or we put fat back in it, or and they don't understand that what you put in it is part of the food as well. So learning how to cook healthy plant-based is a learning experience, and learning how to make it palatable that people will eat it when they aren't plant-based is also another thing that you need to do. It is a transition. Okay. Yes, ma'am. I can't hear you.
No.
They're not good. They both belong in the red food category, not healthy to eat. And you will not find any of them that are in the healthy category. All right, now if you make them at home yourself with whole plant-based, without the fat and without all of the sodium, you can get a good, healthy burger. But anything that you buy in the store has been processed.
Many years ago at Rainbow Grocery in San Francisco wanted to publish all the ingredients of everything they sold, so they contacted Loma Linda, and Loma Linda refused to give them all the ingredients they used, so they took it off their shelves.
Right.
So that was back in the 90s. So
Right.
Loma Linda's in the red category too.
Yes.
I think that people are a little confused about the barbecue that we had today. Yeah,
We can't hear you. Push the green till the button comes on.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes.
They're confused about the the burgers that we had today. We
Turn
had
yours off. Yeah. No, yours. Oh, okay.
Can you guys?
Mhm.
Okay, they're confused about the barbecue that we had today, whether or not it was considered plant-based. I would say yes.
Okay, it's all plant-based, but is it healthy plant-based? And you would have to read the label on the barbecue and see how much fat, how much sugar, how much added sugar is in the barbecue.
If it was homemade, like Sister Alabi's lentils or your lentil loaves or different loaves, if that was what it was, then it was healthy. But we don't know. We don't know who made it, or we don't know.
So that's kind of the case, okay? And if you're being careful about what you eat, and as I said, when I go out, I stick with a salad unless I can ask questions, and I don't like to be the person who walks into potluck and say, what's in this and what's in that? So I just don't eat what I question. And that's the way I can stay safe with what I'm supposed to be eating. All right? Because when you go through the line and it's potluck, everybody cooks differently, and everybody is not as health conscious or health aware. And so in a potluck, you just need to be careful unless you know how the food was prepared. But if you take barbecue sauce out of a jar, out of a bottle in the store, Read it. Look at how much sugar is in it. Look how much salt is in it. And then that will determine the difference as to whether it was healthy or not. But when you read like ketchup has tons of sugar in it. Okay? And you look on the shelf. Now they do now have in the stores a ketchup that's lower sugar. But then they'll try to change the sugar to things like other sugar substitutes. And those sugar substitutes are, you just have to check them out. Because a lot of sugar substitutes are just chemically modified things. So just be careful about what you're eating. We're having a real problem with disease in this country because we get too much fat, we get too much salt, and we get too much sugar. And they put that in every ingredient because people like it. And they want you to keep coming back. So you really have to be your own advocate if you want to be healthy and check out the food that you're buying and eating. And I always say it's a shame to pay money to kill yourself. Okay? And so there are certain ingredients, if I see them in the product, I won't bring them out the store. And like I said, when I first started getting trained on this, I walked through a grocery store for 3 hours one afternoon and read ingredients. I went through the whole Lucky supermarket, and in three and a half hours, I found one ingredient that was just what it said it was. And believe it not, it was Weight Watchers popcorn, and the ingredient said popcorn. Okay? There was nothing else in the store that was the thing I was looking for, only. It had all that stuff in it. So if I want my green beans, I can go to frozen, and frozen is pretty healthy. I buy them fresh and cook them. All right? If I let someone else cook them for me, there's something in it that I probably wouldn't eat. So hard as it is, if you want to be safe, you need to understand what's in the food you're eating. Mm-hmm. It's okay.
I'm very confused. Prior to switching to this plant-based diet.
Wait a minute, let her get your mic.
Yeah. So prior to switching to this so-called plant-based diet, my diet generally consists of salmon, like baked salmon, or maybe every 6 months or so, I would eat like beef liver because it has iron.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm being told that there are good and bad plant-based food. I'm not gonna walk around for 3 hours into the supermarket to read those labels before I can purchase something. Now, I'm looking at this burger made from plants, and what is it? Beyond Beef?
Uh-huh.
And they're saying the good and the bad. Now, how am I gonna know that? I'm not gonna walk in the store and try to read what's...
No, it's a learning
confusing.
process, and I only had to go to the store one time for 3.5 hours to understand the only aisle I need to shop on is the produce aisle. I don't need to go into the store to look for food. All right, and then I learned that I did have to cook at home, but I was sick and I wanted to be well, and that's why I did it.
Right, but they're saying that not all plant-based are good. So how can I, tell the distinction between the two? I mean, I generally purchase the, Chef Chu. He has a steak and one is beef that I generally get in Whole Foods. And then I would go to Trader Joe's to get that ground beef stuff, and it said plant-based. Now those are the only two.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a chicken, which I rarely see now, but this is very discombobulated, because I don't know what to do.
Right. Now, this is one of the people in this class early on said, so what am I supposed to eat? Because when she started looking at this, the question was, so what am I supposed to eat? Whole plant-based foods as God made them. What's a whole plant-based food the way God made it? Grows out of the ground. grows out the ground. It has all the, see in Genesis, when he told us what to eat, the grains, the legumes, all of these foods are natural foods that as they are grown are healthy. What perverted this food? Man perverted the food by processing it and putting things in it. Okay?
It must reproduce.
Yeah, it does have to reproduce itself. So those are the things that God gave to man to eat from the beginning. What has happened is man has changed the food because of their appetite and their desire for something different. And we look for making better choices. So no matter what step you're at right now, you want to make better choices. It takes a while to change because we've been eating the way we've been eating all our lives. I had been eating my way 65 years before I really started to get sick. And when I started learning what I should be eating, my diseases have been, I am in better shape than I was at 30. That's why it's important to me to make the change. I could have continued to leave some of those things in my diet, but they're not good for me. And I just couldn't continue to eat them. Okay? And so knowing that you don't need, under nutrients, you know how much approximately you need of protein, how much you need of carbohydrates. And we've used the plate, saying half your plate ought to be your vegetables. A fourth of your plate ought to be your carbs. So once you lay your plate out, you don't have to understand exactly what's going on. You know that you're approximately right if you get the plate right. Another way to do it is to actually figure out how much do I need in fiber, protein, carbs, all of the nutrients, and then develop your diet based on that. But the plate plan is an easy way to start. So, and we've done classes on this, and we'll do classes on it again here at the church to help people understand what is a healthy plate. And we can't do a healthy plate with meat. We can't. We cannot.
So let me just interject here for a moment. So I'm going to say this and I'm going to shut up.
Keep talking until we're on the same page, okay?
You know, I was in the emergency room this past week here because I have been experiencing something I've never felt before. My fingers, the tip of my fingers, and I was using the word numb.
Mm-hmm.
When I mentioned that to my friend, she said I should go to the emergency room because she had a stroke. But when I went to the ER and I explained to the doctor what I was feeling, the tip of my fingers, just the tip of my fingers, and in the joints of my fingers. And when I explained to the doctor and I said, what is the difference between numb and something else? Well, he said numb is when, you go to the dentist and they give you that needle and, if they were to poke you with something, you'll never feel it. Then I said, okay, no, that's not what I can still feel the touch. If someone were to touch my fingers. So he said, well, maybe it's when, you cross your legs and it's in a position for a long while. Then all of a sudden, you feel those tingling. Okay, so that's what has been going on with all my fingers and pain in my joints. In the ER, they did all sorts of tests from my heart, my blood pressure. They had me hooked up on that machine all night. The doctor came back and said, you are fine. So they said, the only thing that I see, maybe you are missing some protein or something. What's your diet? He said, you're missing something there, And I said, well, I do eat plant-based. So I said, well, you probably better start, you're missing something. And I said, oh, okay. So this is the reason why I raised the
question.
The argument.
Right. What we need to do, and I hope to bring a plant-based nutritionist in to help us understand the eating. The very same thing happened to me when I was eating meat, and my joints were very painful. They were very hot. I had to wear the little sleeves on my joints. I couldn't bend them all the time. And they diagnosed mine as arthritis. But you know, when I quit eating meat, I haven't had an issue with it since then. And the issue with us and our doctors is our doctors aren't trained on nutrition. Okay, so when we start working with them, if we're not working with someone who's trained on nutrition, they really shouldn't be giving you advice on what you should eat. They should refer you to a nutritionist who can work with you and figure out exactly what's going on. Yes.
Okay, I actually changed doctors. She was a good doctor, but whenever I talked about my diet, she said, well, you probably need to do this or that, so I switched doctors. And I fortunately found a doctor who had just switched to being vegan. So now I don't have any people telling me how I should eat. But the thing is that in terms of what to eat and what not to eat, when you go to the store, they say to shop the periphery, shop around, meaning that what you can eat is usually around the outside, and the inside are mostly your processed foods. So you head for your the produce aisle, like she's saying, and doing the produce. The thing is that transitioning from meat to non-meat, people do transition and use those processed meat things until they're able to let go of that and move on. And what we fail to realize is that everything we eat has protein in it. Some just has more protein than others. So it's like what they're saying here in the list in terms of what to eat. It says whole grains, fruits, vegetables, nuts, legumes, which are the beans, seeds, and actually some healthy vegetable oils. I don't use much oil. My husband's had several heart attacks and a stroke, and so we've basically cut oil out of our diet. But we do eat a lot of nuts, probably too many. I know I do. But it does have the oil and that you need, your body needs. It also has protein, and so do the beans. And even though my husband complains about the beans, he eats them, and we eat beans maybe three or four times a week in different dishes. I can make enchiladas and put black beans in it. We can do, I do lentil loaf, different kinds of loaves and things that have nuts in it and beans, and those are the things where we get most of our protein. But like I said, everything we eat has protein in it.
Yes, ma'am.
One thing that is missing from many vegan diets is vitamin B complex. And
B12.
And they say nutritional yeast will give you the full range of B vitamins. So that was just one thing I want to mention. The other thing I want to mention is I was at a medical health professionals convention yesterday, and there was a lot of talk about what's going on with the medical profession, and that they are now being paid to give us unhealthy stuff, unhealthy food, or even the prescriptions and so forth. And they are intimidated by what they can and cannot say. I have one friend who's a psychiatrist. She was first a medical doctor. For example, she said, if I were to tell a patient they should not take the shot, I can lose my license. And others were giving examples of feedback that they had gotten, for example, from a physical therapist who was told to keep the beds full, the hospital beds full. So the point that I'm making is we have to be careful about the advice that we're getting, because that's how the pharmaceutical companies are making their money, and they are being paid to keep us sick. And a number of people have said we're the richest nation, yet and still we're the sickest nation.
Poor self.
And the reason is, so anyway, that we really have to do our homework. study and investigate what's going on with us, and not just take the word of the doctors
Yeah.
or even the health profession, because it just became really clear that they're not working in our best
You're
interest.
your own best health advocate. And, you know, God in His Word has given us all the information that we need to be healthy. So why not believe what He's told us? Why not? And so, and even though it takes a lot to change, it takes time to change, it takes commitment to change. I spend a lot more time in the kitchen because I cook everything. But, and I was saying, I have a bean collection downstairs in the cabinet that we used in our health fairs, where I have 36 different kind of beans. I eat beans every day. And there is so much variety that God has put on this planet of food for us to eat that we would never run out, except we get in those ruts where we eat the same thing over and over again. And we really don't have to do that. We have plenty of variety of food. Okay, I gotta quickly move on, but I do want to answer these questions because it's important for us to understand the process to get to a plant-based diet healthy. All right, because you can be a very unhealthy vegan if you're sticking to the processed meat and the sweets. All right. Page number 3. Okay. Okay. Now, what should be our daily intake of fruits and vegetables? What should it be? How many fruits and vegetables should you eat a day? All right, right at the bottom of page 3, what does it say? Anybody online got an answer for us? How much fruit should you eat daily and vegetables?
2.5 servings.
2.5 servings daily of fruits and vegetables to decrease the risk of coronary heart disease, stroke, and death. 1 apple, a serving of broccoli, and a small banana would constitute 2.5 servings, for example. Generally, 1 piece of fruit is 1 serving. And what I learned in my changes is that I was eating 3 times more food than I needed to be healthy. And when you're eating the processed foods, you're going to eat more because it takes more to meet your daily requirement. Your body will be satisfied when it has the right mix of proteins and carbs, and when you will be totally satisfied on half the food. But you've got to learn how to mix it. Now it says eating up to 10 servings a day of these healthy plant-based foods quadruples the potential benefit. That means you get about 4 times greater benefit by eating 10 servings of fruit and vegetables as compared to eating 2.5 servings. Okay? And understanding how to get that many, and it's hard to get, for me, to get that many vegetables. I can do fruit all day long. But when it gets to vegetables, to find that many servings a day has been very difficult. So what did I do? I started doing spinach smoothies, and making sure that I was getting, whenever I have a smoothie or a liquid, that I put vegetables in it, not the fruits, so that I could get my servings of vegetables a day. All right, let's get to the Bible study. There's so much confusion in the world today about what we should eat. In the Bible, the word Babylon means confusion. Then that's what this lesson is about. And when we started our discussion of what should we eat, we know there's a lot of confusion in the world about what we should eat. All right, let's go to the Bible study, the second angel's message. Now, if you will get your books out, I'd like to have readers for these sections once I get to number 1. But it says, while the president of Iraq, Saddam Hussein, set out to rebuild the ancient city of Babylon, which is located about 60 miles southwest of Baghdad, he intended to build a replica of Nebuchadnezzar's palace on top of the ruins of the original. Like Nebuchadnezzar, he had his name stamped on many of the bricks used in the building project. Sodom was attempting the impossible, however. According to God, Babylon would never be rebuilt. So why is Babylon featured so prominently in the Bible's depiction of the end of the world? All right, let's start with number 1. Who would like to read for me? How powerful was ancient Babylon? Daniel 1, 1 and 2.
I'll read it.
Okay, thank you.
In the 3rd year of the reign of Joachim, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem and besieged it. And the Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand, and some of the articles of the house of God, which he carried into the land of Shinar, to the house of his God. And he brought the articles into the treasure house of his God. Daniel 1, 1 and 2.
Babylon was a powerful kingdom that dominated the ancient world. Babylon destroyed Jerusalem and conquered the enslaved Judah. Now, what does the Bible predict about the rise and fall of Babylon? Number 2, who will read?
You, O king, were watching, and behold, a great image. This great image, whose splendor was excellent, stood before you, and its form was awesome. This image's head was of fine gold, its chest and arms of silver, its belly and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, its feet partly of iron and partly of clay. Daniel 2, 31 to 33. And 4 great beasts came up from the sea, each different from the other. The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. I watched till its wings were plucked off, and it was lifted up from the earth and made to stand on 2 feet like a man, and a man's heart was given to it. And suddenly another beast, a second like a bear. Daniel 7, 3 to 5.
Okay, in both Daniel 2 and Daniel 7, God had foretold the might and the power of Babylon, represented by the figures on the head of gold and the lion with eagle's wings. Babylon, initially under the leadership of King Nebuchadnezzar, would profoundly affect God's people. However, Babylon's rule would come to an end. In Daniel 2, the head of gold was succeeded by the chest and arms of silver. In Daniel 7, the lion was followed by a bear. Babylon ruled from 605 BC to 539 BC, at which time it was conquered by Medo-Persia. So the image in the book of Daniel was telling the world history and going from those countries that controlled the world, and it started with Babylon and it went down to current time to show what would happen throughout history. Now, what happened to cause ancient Babylon to fall? Who will read? Daniel 5, 1 to 4.
Belshazzar, the king, made a great feast for 1,000 of his lords, and drank wine in the presence of the 1,000. While he tasted the wine, Belshazzar gave the command to bring the gold and silver vessels which his father Nebuchadnezzar had taken from the temple which had been in Jerusalem, that the king and his lords, his wives, and his concubines might drink from them. Then they brought the gold vessels that had been taken from the temple of the house of God, which had been in Jerusalem. And the king and his lords, his wives, and his concubines drank from them. They drank wine and praised the gods of gold and silver, bronze and iron, wood and stone. Daniel 5, 1 through 4.
Okay, so at a drunken party, Nebuchadnezzar's grandson, King Belshazzar, ordered that the holy worship vessels taken from the temple of God in Jerusalem be used in false worship. Number 4, how did God react to the king's blasphemous actions?
But you, his son, Belshazzar, have not humbled your heart, although you knew all this. Your kingdom has been divided and given to the Medes and Persians. That very night, Belshazzar, king of the Chaldeans, was slain, and Darius the Mede received the kingdom being about 62 years old. Daniel chapter 5, verses 22, 30, and 31.
Okay, so when Belshazzar used God's holy worship vessels for an unholy, blasphemous purpose, God moved against the kingdom of Babylon and it fell. Even though he was familiar with how God had worked, Belshazzar persisted in rebellion until God could no longer tolerate his blasphemous actions. So number 5, what did God say would become of Babylon after it fell?
For out of the north a nation comes up against her, which shall make her land desolate, and no one shall dwell therein. They shall move, they shall depart, both man and beast. She shall not be inhabited, but she shall be wholly desolate. Jeremiah 3, verse 2.
Keep going.
Behold, I will stir up Medine against them, and Babylon. For be as when God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. It will never be inhabited, nor will it be settled from generation to generation. Nor will the Arabian, nor will the church make their sheepfold. Isaiah 17, 18.
Okay, so how crazy was it that Saddam Hussein thought that he was going to rebuild Babylon? Couldn't have been familiar with the fact that God said never would that city rise its head again. Okay, now not only would Babylon be destroyed, it would also forever be uninhabited, abandoned, and deserted. So number 6, although the Old Testament predicts Babylon would never be inhabited, how does the book of Revelation describe Babylon?
And the great Babylon was remembered before God. Revelation 16:19.
It's
Babylon the
soft
Great.
voices.
Revelation 17:5. The great city Babylon. Revelation 18:21. The city God.
Change the mics and see if it's louder. Huh?
Okay. And the great
That is better.
Babylon. And the great Babylon was remembered before God. Revelation 16:19. Babylon the Great. Revelation 17:5. The great city Babylon. Revelation 18:21. The city God said would never again exist is featured prominent in the last book of the Bible.
Okay, how is that? That it's featured in the last book of the Bible. Why is that? What's the difference? The city that was never going to rear its head, why is it featured prominently in Revelations? Can't hear you.
Was it because it was labeled the great city?
That's part of it. Why else? Remember, in Revelation, as in Daniel, there were a lot of symbols. It represents what you saw in original Babylon, but it represents something else. It wasn't a physical city in Revelation. It represents confusion. It represents all that was wrong with Babylon of old. So when you start looking in the book of Revelations, you're looking at a symbol that is supposed to help you understand the meaning, not only in a intellectual level, but in a feeling level, an emotional level, because you know how bad Babylon was, then you will have a real understanding of what God was trying to help us to see in Revelation. All right, and so when we start seeing Revelation, with Babylon used in Revelation, God is talking about the confusion. He's talking about everything that was wrong with Babylon. Okay, and then that symbolism is used throughout Revelation to help us understand sin, confusion, and all that has happened through history. So as we read through the scriptures in Revelation about Babylon, think about the history of Babylon, a city that was so evil that God wiped it off the face of the earth and said it would never be rebuilt again. Okay, number 7, how is Babylon described in the New Testament?
Then one of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls
came and talked with me, saying to me, "Come, I will show you the judgment of the great harlot who sits on many waters, with whom the kings of the earth committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth were made drunk with wine of her fornication." So he carried me away in the spirit in the wilderness, and I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast, which was full of names of blaspheme, having 7 heads and 10 horns. The woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet, and adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls, having in her hand a golden cup full of abominations and the filthiness of her fornication. And on her forehead a name was written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and of the abominations of the earth. I saw the woman drunk with blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I marveled with great amazement. Revelation 17, 1-6.
Okay, so in the book of Revelations, Babylon does not refer to a literal city or nation. Babylon is described as a woman, verse 1 and 5, a great harlot,